Greetings to another episode of Talking IFA with me, Babalawo Salako. Today I want to talk about self-initiation, pro or con. Now, in my previous episode, I talked about self-initiation. Is it possible? So this one is pro or con. The next one, the final one, will be about possible consequences. So in this one, we're going to talk about pros and cons of self-initiation into the Ifa, Orisha, spiritual tradition, culture, religion. So let's talk.
Greetings. I'm Babalawo Salako. I was initiated as a priest of Ifa and Obatala in Nigeria in 2006, and I've been practicing the Ifa Orisha religion for over 30 years now. My mission is simple: to help those who are new to the religion or lost in the religion. So if that's you, then buckle up and join me. This is Talking IFA.
So, pro or con for self-initiation. So like I said last time, just a quick overview about what is self-initiation. And it could be into any Orisha, Ifa, to Orunmila, to Obatala, to Oshun, etc. But, and it pretty much, in terms of that, when we talk about self-initiation, they're very similar. But in terms of going to Ifa itself, there's a lot more training involved in that if you go to Ifa than most of the other Orishas. So I'm going to kind of focus on that one. But so let's look at, first of all, what is self-initiation? Really, under that umbrella, it's anything in which a person does something or say that something happens to them and they end up now claiming to be a priest, whether they're a priest of Ifa or Rumula, or priest of Obatala, priest of Oshun, priest of Ogun, etc. And they did not go through the formal, traditional means of initiation. So they self-initiated. They could do, some people say they initiate in dreams. They have a dream one night that they were, initiated as a priest. They wake up the next morning and they say they're initiated, right? Some people read books and they think that they have all the needs and all the steps and they self-initiate and they say they're initiated. They do some kind of processes that they learned in a book. And then they say they're initiated. Just anything like that. Okay. So, so let me just get to I have something here. I'm going to read some of it and respond. Let's first talk about pros of self-initiation. So some pros of self-initiation. Why would someone want to self-initiate or go through a self-initiation process? What are the pros or benefits or that they think they're going to get from that? Well, one of the ones here is called perceived autonomy. Okay, an individual may feel they are taking personal control of their spiritual journey with the goal of spiritual growth and self-discovery. That's a powerful one because I hear that a lot. People say, this is my spiritual journey. Nobody else can tell me about my spiritual journey, and I'm going to do my journey the way I want to do it, etc. So, that would make sense, and that could be a strong driver of people doing that. So that's one of the pros to self-initiation. Another pro would be accessibility, or at least perceived accessibility. It can be seen as a more accessible path for those who may not have the resources or immediate access to a qualified babalawo or priest. Now, so in this case, they're talking about initiation to Ifa, to become a babalawo or Iyanifa. And so they're saying a pro to just self-initiating is to say, I'm not going to wait until I have the resources and the money to get initiated, or when I have access, immediate access. Immediate is the term here, the word. Immediate access to a qualified babalawo or priest in the area that they are. That could be another reason. And they say that's a pro. Okay? Now, let's look at some of the cons listed here. So what are some of the cons listed for self-initiation? 1, a lack of spiritual lineage. Self-initiation is disconnected from the lineage and ancestral authority of a spiritual family or ile. Okay. Some people, I guess, if they self-initiate, feel they don't need that. They feel like they're on their own spiritual journey, their own spiritual path. But here, having a lack of spiritual lineage is important. Now, this is another thing that comes up, is why are people feel like they want to get self-initiated? Now, earlier it said a pro is because it costs quite a bit of money. So if you say, look, I really want to get initiated. I mean, I have people now that are ready to get initiated, but they don't have the money, so they have to wait. They have to be patient. But what I found, though, is patience is required. But what I found is if a person is very serious about getting initiated and they pray for it and they start putting money away, I don't care if they start out putting $20 and then they put it in an envelope and they pray over that and ask for more money, normally that money will come to them. They'll find a way to raise the money and they'll be able to get initiated. But if they just say they want to do it and they really don't start moving in that direction, saving the money that they need to do it, then, it may take a long, long time or it may not happen. The other part here says lineage and ancestral authority. Let's think about culture in general. Any culture is something that a group in the same geographic location, whether it be family, village, whatever, some kind of community, that they develop over time by interacting with each other. They start interacting certain behaviors, certain ways of eating, certain ways of speaking to each other, and they develop culture. And so a lineage allows that to happen. And if that culture, for instance, is in Ifa religion, they've learned different things and ways of moving around the Orisha, the ways of, praying to the Orisha and all these things. These kind of things aren't in books. Now, they may give you a prayer in the book or give you a chant in the book or things like that. But how you really interact with your Orisha and your ancestors or your Egbe, for the most part, the best way to learn that is to be taught, right, by people that are experienced. I mean, think about anything else. Think about sports, basketball, football. They have coaches, right? So coaches are usually people that understand the game. A lot of times they played the game at some point, and they're teaching others how to play the game the right way, how to do this and that. They have experience. And so the people that are coming to learn, they're learning from that lineage, the people that have that experience, and then they can grow in what they do. The ancestral authority part, very, very important. So that goes back to, again, why people have to ask themselves the question, why are they trying to self-initiate? And they have to look in the mirror and say, is it because of narcissism? Because this is a religion that comes out of communal culture. And one of the most important things in any African spiritual tradition are honoring their ancestors. They all believe their ancestor spirits are there with them. They honor their ancestors and believe that the ancestors can help them, help them in their lives here on Earth or IEA. So you're breaking that ancestral authority in the religion, in my opinion, when you don't do things the proper way. So let's go to the next one. No formal introduction to the Orisha. Without a formal initiation, there is no proper introduction to the Orisha or the deities, which can leave the practitioner vulnerable to spiritual harassment from spirits they cannot properly manage. Okay, and so this one I'm not going to get into in this video. I'm going to get into it more in the next one. I'm going to go into more detail on this one in the next episode on consequences, possible consequences. Isolation from community. True initiation integrates individuals into a larger spiritual community. That's what I was saying a minute ago. It is a communal religion, which provides a support system and guidance, because there is so much to learn, especially if you're going to go and try to get initiated as a IFA priest. There is so much you have to learn. I was initiated in 2006. It's 2025, so it's almost 20 years. And I still don't pretend to know everything. I still have a lot things I don't know, and I'm still learning, because there's so much. This culture, religion is so vast that you have to study for a lifetime, and you learn from other people. You get more details on this, that, and the other. It's always an ongoing learning process. So for somebody who's really in it, like I am, it's hard to fathom somebody just saying, oh, I self-initiated, now I'm going to start taking clients, I'm going to start doing divinations. It's hard to fathom that, because it took years and years before I could even start divining. I had to go through training and all of that. So anyway, okay, the next one. Insufficient spiritual power and guidance. The spiritual power and knowledge transmitted through a traditional initiation are considered essential and cannot be substituted with a self-performed ritual. Now, I mentioned it in the last episode a little bit, but this one's very important. When they say insufficient spiritual power and guidance, well, the guidance I just talked about, you have to have elders that's guiding you and training you in this culture and religion. I can't, if I didn't have elders, I still have my elders I go to for things. I can't just go out here and say I know everything. Because another thing about this religion, it comes out of another culture. It comes out of Yoruba culture in Africa. And for those of us who are American Yorubas, we didn't grow up in the Yoruba culture in Nigeria. There's a lot of things we don't know, and just history. Because when you go through Odus, the verses or the essay verses in Odus a lot of times will mention cities and towns that certain things happen in, and this, that, and the other. Now, people who grew up in Nigeria and knows the history, then that city may come up. They know something specific about that city that tells them, okay, I can interpret this essay in this way because I understand exactly what they're talking about. But for somebody who's outside of that culture and didn't grow up, then those cities and towns may not mean anything to us. We see it, and if somebody didn't train me on, well, this city, this is a city of this, or this city that has this history, etc., then they're just towns or cities being mentioned that we don't know, and we don't know how to apply to the verse for us to properly include that in our interpretation. So you always need the guidance. But the spiritual power, or ashe, we call ashe, is not transmitted to the person that's being initiated. See, that's one of the main things about initiation in this religion is it's not just ceremonial. It's not like you're in college and you pledge to be a Kappa or an Alpha or a Q or an AKA. It's not just ceremonial. This is a spiritual practice. There's spiritual, real spiritual energy and power in this, and each Orisha has their own spiritual power, their own ashe. Kind of like you could think about it as energy at a certain frequency. You know, each Orisha has their own frequency, energy, and that sort of thing. And when you get initiated, the priests who are initiating you have to also be a priest of that Orisha so they can have that ashe on them that they can therefore help transmit to you when you get initiated. But if you're initiating yourself, you don't have that ashe. You know, it's I don't see how you could even imagine to get that ashe by just saying I'm going to initiate myself to this Orisha, and nobody's transferring that ashe to you. This last one says there's no substitute for Itefa. So this was focusing in on Ifa, on initiating to a Rumula Ifa as a Babalawo or a Iyan There's no, an Itefa is the full initiation. It says no substitute for Itefa. A self-initiation ritual is not a substitute for Itefa, the full Ifa initiation, and it is crucial to receive the necessary medicines. So there's, Ifa is also medicine. Part of the initiation is providing medicines and to help facilitate the ashe, to receive the necessary medicines and spiritual transmissions of that ceremony. So, for instance, this part that says the necessary medicines. I don't know of any book where people put in all of the recipes and the things for the necessary medicines that go along in Itefa. That's something that's passed down orally, passed down when you get initiated. It's part of the, secrets of initiation. You're not going to get all that in a book. And it says it is crucial to receive the necessary medicines and spiritual transmissions of that ceremony. So the whole purpose of and what happens during Itefa, along with the training and along with the transmission of the ashe, there's also the necessary medicines that help facilitate all of that. So in general, this was a quick overview of some of the pros and cons of self-initiation. Okay? So I hope you got something out of that. I'm going to go a little deeper in the next episode in terms of consequences. What are some possible consequences of self-initiation, especially into to become an Ifa priest, but in any priest, whether it's any other Orisha. So I hope you enjoyed this and got something out of it. Again, I hope you subscribe to Talking Ifa, and look forward to conversing with you in the next episode. Ireo Odabo.